Let me welcome you to a unique radio play, freely inspired by the famous Four Agreements. The main spirit that caused all this is Don Miguel Ruiz, a man who was born into a shaman family. He was born to a father who was a shaman, a mother who was a healer, and a grandfather who was a shaman. And Don Miguel Ruiz didn't want to practice shamanism. And he studied classical medicine. He became a neurosurgeon. Imagine that. But fate, or synchronicity, or reality, or life, or whatever we want to call it, put a car accident in his path, during which Don Miguel Ruiz fell unconscious, left his body, saw himself, experienced that strange event, and told himself that he should develop those shamanic abilities. You know, kids, of course. So he let himself be taught by his mother, by his father. Every weekend, he spent up to 10 hours in trance. Every day, on Saturdays, on Sundays. Because those parents of Ruiz knew how beneficial trance is. Every child knows it. Every little child, please, knows how beneficial trance is. That's why children love trance. That's why they sway, rock so happily, or spin in circles. With those rhythmic movements, they put themselves into an altered state of consciousness. They love, for example, the little airplane game. Try to play the airplane with an adult. Well, hardly anyone will appreciate it. Hardly anyone will rejoice. There usually isn't an altered state of consciousness, but of the guts. Children still tolerate trance well. That's also why, when children play, when you watch little children play, when they get absorbed in their play, you can see a special energy radiating around them. The children enter into that play trance. It's a very beneficial state. That's also why children don't like to be disturbed from it. And we are specialists at disturbing them. We adults. Stop it now. Let's go home. We have to. We're in a hurry. Don't you hear? And the child says, just a little longer, just a moment. No, we have to go. We'll miss the tram. Ruiz's parents knew how beneficial trance is and intentionally kept the boy, the neurosurgeon, in trance. Why did they do it? Because the Toltecs believe that in our body, in our cells, especially in our bones, and in our blood, knowledge is stored. Knowledge is stored there. The Toltecs call it dormant knowledge, or also silent knowledge. And they believe that in trance we can somehow access that knowledge. Well, we all know that in every cell there is a genetic code. We know that. We all agree on that. And that genetic code, that's a pretty complex piece of information. And there are 80 billion cells in the body. 80 billion. And in every single cell, all that genetic information is present. That is a very decent supply of knowledge. And simply, the Toltecs believe that in trance, they can somehow get to it, and that a person can actually learn from themselves. The Greeks believed that too. Those who said, "Know thyself, and you will know the world." All the old schools believed that. They knew it. No spiritual teacher will ever teach you anything. Each one will tell you, everything is within you. Everything is stored inside you. You just need to discover it. And also unlearn what you've already learned. That's important too. Because we usually learn absolute nonsense, and the fate of Don Miguel Ruiz seems very fitting to us. He was born into a shaman family, didn't want to do it, but returned to shamanism thanks to fate. And that's us too, isn't it? Here, on this planet, our civilization. We too were born into a shamanic environment, onto this planet Earth, Mother Earth. Pachamama, as the Indians say. And we also didn't want to do any shamanism. We said we would make a rational civilization, right? Comfortable, clever. Hot water will flow right to our mouths. A robot will shower us. We don't even have to wash the dishes. they'll wash themselves. We also thought that we would create something technological, rational, and no shamanism. Only the development of the planet, fate, and various events that are happening kind of bring us back to those old teachings. And those teachings are very interesting in that they point out that we are always connected to the whole, that everything is a whole, and that we are a part of it, that there exists some interconnected network of life. And when we interfere with that network, we are also affecting ourselves at the same time. And these teachings suddenly started to interest us. Suddenly, it seems to us that they are modern and much more harmonious, and somehow more humanistic than some of the pillars of our civilization. So, in this, the fate of Don Miguel Ruiz seems interesting and somehow fitting for this evening. Because we have to ask ourselves, what are we actually doing here together tonight? Why have we gathered like this? What could be the meaning of this meeting? And for this, an old Indian legend about the god Brahma will serve us. A legend that Don Miguel Ruiz loves and included in one of his books. And as you know, or as some of you know, the legend says that at the beginning of everything was the god Brahma. Now we know that some people are already sensitive to the masculine concept of God. You know that God is always a man, that Brahma, that God. So, we slightly change the legend, just a little, only at the beginning. And we say that at the beginning of everything, there was the Brahma. Simply neutral, indeterminate, undifferentiated, omnipresent, and all-knowing. And according to the legend, this Brahma, which existed in such a balanced vibration, in such harmony, started to get a little bored. It wanted to experience something else, something new, some change. It wanted change. It wanted to start playing a game. But how can the omnipresent, all-knowing Brahma play a game? With whom would it play? Who would be the opponent if the result of the game is already known in advance? The Brahma found an incredible solution. It separated from itself two huge competences, two players, the god Brahma and the goddess Maya. And it was Maya who immediately knew what could be done. She immediately said, "Brahma, I know a wonderful game, and if you follow my instructions, we will do great." And Brahma, very willingly, according to those instructions, like a gentleman or like an old donkey, began to follow those instructions. He started creating universes. He created universes. That is what we call our universe. There, those various galaxies. That is what we call our galaxy. There, in that galaxy, different solar systems. That is what we call our solar system. The sun, planets, earth, oceans, vegetation, animals. Well, Maya was delighted. "Brahma, that is such a beautiful world of illusions. Now please create some kind of intelligent animal that would be able to appreciate this beauty." And he created people. And he asked, "When do we start playing the game?" And Maya said, "Now." She jumped at Brahma, cut him into thousands of pieces, and put each piece into one person. And she said, "The game begins. You now, Brahma, inside those people, will completely forget about yourself. But gradually, over time, you will try to find yourself again, and I will prevent you." And from that moment, the game has been played. That is the game. In each of us, there is a piece of Brahma, and Maya tries to convince us that it is nonsense, that it is stupidity, arrogance, lack of humility, or pride, madness. Only, each of us has seen a newborn baby at some time, an infant. And when you see a baby, well, you can clearly see that it is still a pure piece of the divine. That is a clear piece of Brahma. This baby still radiates that unity, that connection with the whole. It is still bathing in that wholeness. It does not yet have an ego developed. This baby is still a pure, divine peace. Or, sometimes, a situation might happen to us where, for example, you are sitting somewhere in a cafe or a restaurant, or you are traveling by train, and suddenly you catch someone's gaze. And now, suddenly, you realize that some stranger is looking at you. Because our civilization has invented such an incredible thing that we believe that a stranger can exist. You understand? We believe that on this planet, which the Indians call Pachamama, Mother Earth, we believe that there can be such a thing as a stranger, and we also behave accordingly. A stranger. But suddenly, that stranger looks at us, and we realize that he has some familiar eyes, that we know those eyes. Those eyes are familiar to us. Now we do not understand it at all. A stranger has familiar eyes. And if we overcome that natural shyness, that embarrassment, and we start talking with that stranger, it can also happen that suddenly we find out that we are talking with that stranger wonderfully, even about things we have never talked about with anyone. And maybe we talk with them calmly for 2 or 3 hours. And how is that possible? What happened at that moment of eye contact? Well, what? Those two pieces of Brahma recognized each other. Of course, they remembered each other. They recognized that they belonged together. They suddenly knew it. And of course, they begin to exchange experiences because that is the meaning of the game. The meaning of the game is that each of us, in our body, in that leather bag, in that strange little vehicle that gives the impression that we really are separate from the whole, each of us in this leather bag experiences his or her own special, unique, one-of-a-kind destiny, experiences a special experience, and then the point is to start exchanging those experiences. And when we exchange those experiences with each other, together we create that fabric, and together we create that Brahma. That is how the legend sees it. So today, if it works, if it worked tonight here, if it succeeded to awaken the pieces of Brahma, because simply we dedicate this performance, Forgive Us, to the pieces of Brahma, we fully accept the risk that the rest will not understand it. We know that Maya will resist. She has to do that. That is her role. Otherwise, it would not be a game if she did not resist. But we dedicate this to the pieces of Brahma. And if we manage to awaken a few pieces of Brahma, then after the end of the performance, ladies and gentlemen, even here with the film crew, we can join hands. We create a transformational serpent. We will run from the platform outside, and we will cross the Vltava River with dry feet. Well, maybe not tonight yet, but that moment is getting closer. I hope that tonight you still take it rather as a metaphor. We would not like to read tomorrow in the Crime Chronicle about some overzealous spectator. If someone already wanted to try such a crossing, then either use the bridge. There it is possible to cross with dry feet quite easily. Or, please, gentlemen present, hold on to your women. Surely you know that women are cunning. They use high heels. Women can somehow cross the water very easily. And moreover, they are in much greater connection with synchronicity, with the changes that are happening. Women, with their intuition and their connection, are somehow more knowledgeable about the situation that is happening now. Men are rather confused by the current situation. After those 2,000 years, or however many years, of this rule of men, or those several thousand years, The man is a bit confused, as if he were to become just a kind of drone or something. The situation is demanding. Both genders actually need to meet again. Words are a very strange phenomenon, a kind of human invention. Words, on the one hand, help us, but on the other hand, they enslave us in a peculiar way. They dictate to us our perception of the world. They determine our thinking. We hear those words from a very young age, from the tiniest childhood. Maybe some of you sometimes remember what it was like when we were little. Do you sometimes remember how it was a completely different world? How we could do everything? How there was plenty of time? Time was endless. Space was endless. Everything was beautiful. Of course, right at the beginning, when we were born like that, we could not have managed by ourselves. We know that. We would not have survived. We were those young liars. We only knew how to lie there, nothing else. And we needed someone to take care of us. And we had two fantastic gods, Mom and Dad. They were gods. Amazing, big, giant, very strong. They could carry us wherever we needed to go, and sometimes even where we didn't need to go. They could change us, bathe us, give us a drink, breastfeed us, rock us, hold us, caress us. And they were also enormously smart because they knew everything. And they told us so. They always told us so. That is the sky. That is the sun. That is a bird. That is a cloud. That is rain. That is a river. That is a meadow. That is a cow. That is milk. And in our miraculous head, in that wonderful child's head, a world began to form. We began to understand what we looked at, what we touched, what we tasted, what we listened to, what we felt, what we smelled. As long as they told us what is what, it was quite clear. We could understand it. But then even the gods suddenly get tougher, and suddenly they pull out adjectives. What is it like? Well, what is it like? Well, what is it like? As long as it's just white, black, sharp, blunt, light, heavy, narrow, wide, we can sort of understand it. But then the gods suddenly come out with good and bad. And that's where the confusion starts, because even both gods often don't agree. And a certain strange chaos begins, which culminates at the moment when the child discovers that it itself is sometimes good and sometimes bad. And calmly, during the day, it changes several times, and the reasons are not obvious. The child just suddenly finds out, with its big head, that there are somehow two inside. That good little boy and that naughty one. That good little girl and that ugly one. And now it switches during the day, and the child knows nothing. It understands only one thing, that the parents somehow prefer the good one. That becomes clear pretty soon. And only the good one gets rewards, praise, caresses. That one is allowed to do things that the naughty one is not allowed to do. Because the naughty one gets punishments, bans, scoldings, and there's a very small percentage of masochistically inclined children who would ask for punishments. That's more of an exception. Most children want praise. Well, so do we. We adults also want praise quite a lot. It's better than some kind of insult. And now those children just try to please their parents. They try to please them, to be good and get that praise. And there is such a strange situation because the parents suddenly say such complicated instructions that it can make the children's heads explode. Because the godparent, godfather, or godmother, quite calmly, in the middle of some situation, will suddenly say to the child, "Calm down immediately." Look, that's a demanding instruction, even for an experienced yogi. Only a master of self-control can comply here. But parents calmly give another instruction. For example, they say, "Go to your room and come back when you're normal. Now tell me, what does the child do in that room? How does it puzzle it out? How does it know when it can come back to sleep? Or such a nice instruction that all children love. Go to sleep now. That is a Zen koan. The more the child tries to please, the less it succeeds. And what about the kind of traces left in a child's head by a phrase like, shoot yourself out, or tear yourself apart like a snake? Sometimes the child ponders this for 10 or 15 years. And what about the pinnacle of parental magic? The command, disappear. Go away from my sight. I don't want to see you. Now the child tries to disappear. Of course it can't do it. It just stands there awkwardly. It feels out of place, tries to disappear. It hears that command quite often. And over time, the child even learns how to disappear. Sure, the child can manage it, but not right away. It's a gradual process. There are all sorts of influences at work. Various influences come together. One of those influences is, for example, that the child. Notice how often a child hears a strange sentence, that someone has to watch over them. Who's going to watch you? You can't be here alone. Someone has to watch you. What would you do here alone? You'd just smash everything up, wouldn't you? A child just knows that someone has to watch them. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, or some babysitter. And because the child gradually senses that the parents have a problem with this, it tries to accommodate them and learns what? The child learns to watch over itself. The child watches over itself, and that's what we grow up into. Us here, adults. We can watch over ourselves now, can't we? We don't need a babysitter anymore, even though maybe someone would like one. I don't know. And how do we manage to watch over ourselves? How do we do it? Well, in our miraculous head, we create our own watcher. The judge. We carry him with us, right here. The watcher, the judge is here, and he tells us everything himself. Don't do that. Don't get involved in that. Sit down and be quiet. That's not yours. Say hello. Brush your teeth. Say thank you. Yes, he tells us that. He already watches us, so we don't do anything foolish by accident. We carry that watcher with us. And of course, as soon as the head creates that judge, it immediately also creates the victim. So the judge has someone to talk to. And the judge, the watcher, gives it to the victim to eat. You shouldn't have gotten involved in that. That's not for you at all. You should have just kept quiet. And of course, the victim takes all of this in. Yes, it's true. I'm a fool. Sure, I really didn't deserve it. The victim simply tries to escape from it somehow. Most of the time, we construct things so that we identify with the victim. And the watcher, that's some kind of authority. Dad, teacher, or God. Or just some kind of authority. Some external one. And all of this plays out in our head. That's important. It helps us with disappearing so we can manage it later on. On the other side, there are the parents who have to keep an eye on the child. Ladies and gentlemen, that is such exhausting work. I'm sure you all know that there is some confusing cosmic law that the little child has more energy than both parents combined. That doesn't make any sense. The parents are very exhausted. The child is like Mercury. The bigger it gets, the more it moves around, rummages. Everything interests it. It doesn't know what's valuable and what's not valuable in the apartment. It just wants to try everything. And suddenly we realize that the child doesn't fit into our apartment at all. That apartment isn't made for a child at all. There are electrical sockets low down and switches up high. It's backwards. The child wants to turn on the light, but can only reach the socket. And then we build the same apartment again, and we'll deal with it all over again, so that it doesn't accidentally touch it. What are we going to do? So it doesn't touch the socket. But once again, we put the socket right there. We have to hide everything in some cabinet. Everything valuable has to be hidden, because the child always has amazing attention, even if it looks like it's just playing. Thanks to that trance, the child notices everything perfectly. It scans every movement of the parents. Above all, it hears what it's not supposed to hear, and it sees what it's not supposed to see. The parents are exhausted. They are tired. It's really a hard battle with that child. Fortunately, there is help that has proven itself. We all know it. It's called the playpen, a beneficial device that allows the child to be safe and the parents to have at least a moment to relax. I had a wooden one, if you remember, a square wooden one. I spent more than one productive moment there. My children already had a modern model, a merciful kind of playpen. That's the round one, the one that even has a raised floor so the child doesn't get cold. And it doesn't have those hard wooden bars. Instead, there's a soft fabric, a kind of material that almost looks like it isn't even there. But of course, it's there. And when the child tries to leave the playpen, it gently brings the child back into place. After a few tries, the child gets centered and figures out where its place is. And it likes to play there because the parents are clever and, of course, put toys inside. And if the parents are especially stupid, they'll put the very best toys in there. Dad, I want to play with the best toy. Well then, go into the playpen. It's waiting there for you. And that's that. The child is in the playpen, and everything is quiet. It's strange how that playpen kind of gets under our skin. That later, as adults, we create a playpen in our own head, and we build ourselves a mental playpen. That safe place, that safe environment. A job, a family, a couple of friends, maybe a hobby or two. Then there are those opinions that we think we invented ourselves, and we just keep repeating them. And that is our mental playpen. That's where we feel safe. What's interesting is that as children, as soon as we grow a bit and get stronger, we try to climb out of that playpen. We climb out, of course. But as adults, on the contrary, we stay in it. As adults, in fact, we build that playpen stronger and stronger as a kind of protection, and it unsettles us if someone tries to pull us out of it. We don't like that. How is it possible that as children, we wanted to escape the playpen, and as adults, we build it for ourselves? Well, because during growing up, two strange forces struggle inside us. One is called the ego, and the other is the soul. The ego is this strange force that loves safety, success, career, security, insurance. The ego is the source of all insurance. The soul, on the other hand, loves development, change, and experimentation. Something new, a new experience. And now these two forces sort of have their discussion, and during adolescence, the ego gains a bit of an upper hand because it gradually develops within us. And thanks to all the taming that happens all the time, from parents, teachers, educators, the child becomes more and more tamed. The ego gains its confidence, its arguments. Maya is rubbing her hands because ego is a good tool for Maya. And suddenly, the ego just easily talks over and shouts down the soul. Even though the ego is fairly loud, the soul is quiet. It's a very gentle force. It speaks constantly. It's always talking, but very softly, never forcing itself. There are moments when we can hear it. Sometimes by the sea, when the sun is setting. when we see a butterfly flying by, or when we watch flowers, or when we look at a bird of prey circling in the sky, when we see the mountain peaks, when we listen to the babbling of water, or when we gaze at the stars at night. These are moments when we can hear the voice of our soul quietly calling us out of the playpen, quickly out of the playpen. But most of the time, the ego solves it again. And that's that. In that moment, we have to choose whether to listen to the soul and do something completely confused, strange, totally unexpected for those around us, or whether we'll just keep going in the same direction as before. Because the ego is the child of the past, it keeps continuing with securing, with career, with building certainty, that pseudo-certainty. As children, of course, we would climb out of the playpen. That's clear. As soon as we're able, we escape from the playpen. We escape even from the little bed, with the pull-up safety side. Do you remember those beds? How they'd put us in, pull up the side, and good night. There was even one lady in the audience once. She told us that her parents would always put her in, pull up the side, and say, "Turn nicely to the wall and go to sleep." And because she was a good girl, she turned to the wall every night and gradually drifted off to sleep. Please sometimes repeat that sentence to yourself. Turn nicely to the wall and go to sleep. Because this is a sentence that can put us to sleep for our whole life. In every situation that's not pleasant for you, turn to the wall and go to sleep. If something rubs you the wrong way, turn to the wall and go to sleep. If something makes you uneasy, turn to the wall and just keep sleeping. This is a situation we often stay in for a long time. But even this little girl, one day, will climb out of the bed. And then what happens is what we all remember. We also put our own child in that bed, pulled up the side, got ready for an evening with our partner, poured some wine, and suddenly, for the first time, the child comes out on their own. What? What's going on? She's already crawling out, you see. What? So you climbed out? Let's see. Look, she's actually climbing out, really climbing. What are we going to do? Should I tie her up at night or what? Or should I build some kind of roof here? Parents have it programmed into them that the worst situation is when a child moves about on their own. When the child moves about unsupervised, parents are convinced that the moment this happens, the child wants to kill themselves, or kill someone else, or something, or break or destroy something. That's why a child must always be watched. Even at the sandbox, where there's really nothing left to break except maybe a sandcastle. Even there's a supervisor, and every supervisor has their own style. A child is subject to a diverse upbringing. Sometimes it's dad. Dad has his own peculiar style. What are you playing at? Doing it like that? That'll collapse, you know. No, that tunnel is too shallow. And this is dry sand. Look, you don't know anything. Look here. See? He wants to tell you. And you, be careful, little guy. Honk the horn when you're dumping out your little truck, okay? Dad simply leads the children toward creativity. Mom is different. By the end of the day, she's had enough of the child. She just sort of drops them onto the sand and immediately starts chatting with her friend because there's always something to talk about. The child is watched only out of the corner of her eye because the child is busy playing. But as we know, a child who is playing has all their sensory channels fully engaged. So they're actually scanning their mother very well. The moment the child notices that mom's attention is dropped, the child tries to take advantage of it. But then there's the allied mom, who yells out that familiar, ringing warning, "Watch out, yours is running away." And our mom says something like, "What? Where are you going? Come back. Come on, come on. Where are you going, for heaven's sake? A dog will bite you there. Or there's a man with a needle, and he'll poke you. Come here, sit down and play nicely." And that's also a beloved instruction. Play nicely. Just so the child doesn't happen to play in an ugly way. Play nicely. What are you kids rolling around for? Don't you know you have a new skirt? Do you know how much it cost? Is this how you value your things? New shoes. Look at yourself. You look like a pig. That's just how parenting goes. But one day, Mom gets absorbed in some story, which is really interesting because the other moms are listening, and the child manages to get a bit farther away. But that's the crucial moment. The child gets past the boundary of Mom's natural sphere of influence. Suddenly, Mom notices the child is further away. She can't just say, "Come back, come on," because she feels it's too late. The child is already too far, and the child senses it too. They wait to see what will happen. Suddenly, Mom realizes that the other moms are all curiously watching to see what she'll do. It's becoming a matter of prestige. Our mom needs to handle it somehow, but she's modern. She solves it as a game. "Let's play tag," she says. So, logically, the child runs off. Now, the mother realizes that maybe this wasn't the best idea, because now she has to run after the child. But she doesn't have running shoes on. She's wearing slippers. So she runs awkwardly, not very fast. The child loves this and takes off even faster, running away, and the mom can't catch up. The child is thrilled. This is the first time in their life they can actually outrun their mother. Mom just can't keep up. It's wonderful. But now the mom is stumbling, and inside, she starts to panic. Then she sees the child heading toward a road where a car might be passing. That's when the mother forgets all about elegance and dignity. She drops everything and, with one big leap, grabs the child. She saves them at the very last moment. It could be a happy ending, a beautiful, happy ending. If only the mom weren't already a bit wound up, and if she didn't keep that energy going. So, she holds on to the child and says, "What were you trying to do? Were you trying to get yourself killed, for heaven's sake? You can't do that. You can't get yourself killed. Promise me you'll never do that again. Promise me you'll never, ever do that again." And, of course, the child promises because they want to be good. But they have no idea what they're promising, because just a moment ago, they were playing a fantastic game. They were just doing exactly what Mom suggested. It was a wonderful game together. They ran, she chased. The child had absolutely no intention of getting hurt, not at all. Very few children actually have that in mind. But now, right in the middle of this wonderful game, the child suddenly sees the terrified look on their mother's face and feels her emotion. "Promise me you'll never do that again," she says. And, of course, the child promises. And this promise, this very promise, is something we often get from our children at the very moment when they're having a wonderful time playing. Of course, we see it only from our own point of view. From our perspective, we see that they're trying to break something, or hurt themselves, or put someone in danger. And because we regularly demand this promise, we actually teach the child how to disappear. And one day, the child disappears. You'll notice it from a sentence we say, And it goes something like this. He's such a golden child. I don't even notice him all day. That means the child has already disappeared. They've learned how to do it. And how do they do it? By hiding that naughty part of themselves from their parents. The part of them that misbehaves. The part that isn't accepted. The part their parents don't like. The child learns to hide that part and offers the parents only the good side, the problem-free side. And the parents are happy. It's perfect. It's a great solution. The child is at peace, and so are the parents. And it would be absolutely wonderful if only we could stop time, but we know we can't. Time goes on, and that hidden part of the child keeps growing, just like the unhidden part. And then there comes a moment we call puberty. That mysterious moment when for some strange reason, these two parts switch places. And suddenly, out of the darkness, a stranger comes rushing at us. Suddenly, we realize that we're living with someone who's bigger than we are. They're huge, take up so much space. They're incredibly loud. They walk around dressed strangely, with weird hair, sometimes odd smells. They have really bizarre friends. They listen to nonsensical music, watch nonsensical shows, speak in some incomprehensible language, but most importantly, we have no idea who they are. And so we say that famous line, "Who do you think you are?" Because we really don't know. We don't even understand where that creature came from. Where did you pick that up? Who taught you that? And we don't realize that it was us who taught them. With those strange instructions we give to our kids. Seriously, try this experiment. The next time you're at work, try saying to a colleague in the middle of an argument, "Calm down immediately and wipe your nose." Or say, "I'll give you a cold shower." Or try telling your furious boss at a meeting, "Go to your office and come back when you're normal." Try it. Or tell a police officer who stops you at night for a routine check, "Disappear. I don't want to see you." Just try it so we can realize what we're actually saying to our children. What are these sentences really? The child loves their parents, their gods, and takes everything literally. For a long time, the child fully believes everything their parents say. They have no sense for grown-up humor. And that's why Don Miguel Ruiz's first agreement says, "Be impeccable with your word. Do not use words against anyone." Always keep in mind the immense magical power of words. Speak as a conscious person. Be aware of what you're actually saying. Don't speak like a talking machine. Leave gossip out of your communication. Gossiping, is practically the main principle of communication in our civilization. Notice this. When a group of people is in a room, someone steps out to the restroom. Guess who they start talking about? It's strange how good it feels to talk about someone who isn't there. And Don Miguel Ruiz said, "If you really need to talk about someone, speak about them as if they were present. Speak about them so that your words would stand even if they were in the room. Don't use your words for gossip, which is what most of the best-selling magazines, which of course nobody buys, are based on. Though somehow, many people have them at home, as if by some miracle." And Ruiz says, always remember the immense power of words. Maybe I should add one more thing to the first agreement. The point of tonight is not to make anyone feel depressed. Sometimes we have people in the audience who have a tendency towards self-blame. They experience all this in a strange way. They say, "Did we mess up everything for our kids? Wow, those poor things had a terrible childhood." That's not the point of tonight. The point isn't to blame yourself or feel guilty. Absolutely not. Nobody is at fault here, really. This is an inherited system of upbringing. Who do we mean by inherited system of upbringing? It's how our parents were raised, and their parents before them, grandparents, great-grandparents, for thousands of years. It's called upbringing by fear, upbringing by scaring. Wait till you're older. Wait till you go to school. Wait till you have to earn your own money. Wait till you have your own kids. Then you'll see. That's how we awaken a longing for life in our children. But we inherited this. Do you see? The point here isn't to blame yourself. It's about the incredible opportunity. What's actually the difference between Brahma? Where did you get it from? That you are not me. Now that sounds like nonsense, right? What kind of weird sentence is that? Where did you get it from? That you are not me. But the old Toltecs, when two Toltecs met, they had a special greeting. They would greet each other with the phrase, "You are my other self. You are my other self. You are my other self." They would say it to each other at every meeting, so they wouldn't forget. So that they would always remember that whenever you meet another person, you are meeting yourself. That if you hurt another, you are hurting yourself. They had this clever greeting for that. But of course, that's not our system, right? You are my other self. That's kind of strange. Because what if you're walking down the street and some drunk or some homeless person comes up to you and says, "You are my other self"? We probably wouldn't like that. We'd say, "Excuse me, you must have confused me with someone else, right? Please leave before I call someone, okay?" Because we don't have the system from childhood that says, "You are my other self." We have an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a rough patch for a rough sack. As you call into the forest, so it echoes back. How you treat me, so I treat you. Something for something. That's our way of thinking. Building up that personal importance. Because the ego, which we talked about, is that strange part that develops through this domestication. The ego is the part that, in a strange way, cuts itself off from the whole. The ego doesn't believe that you are my other self. No way. The ego believes you are my enemy. You are a stranger. You are a competitor. You are someone who can take something away from me. And from childhood, we are raised to cultivate that ego. You have to study hard. You have to study hard. You have to study hard so you can become something. This sentence pretty much claims that we are nothing for now. We're nothing. But if we study hard, maybe we'll become something. And in some cases, even someone. And that's really something. You have to make it somewhere, as high as possible. Ivan Vyskočil, the Czech writer, once asked in one of his books, "What does that even look like? That thing we have to make it to make it somewhere. What is it actually?" And he comes to the theory that it must be some kind of weight, some burden that we try to drag as high as possible. So we use a pulley to distribute the force. And in the process of this hydraulics, we don't notice that while the ego is pulling the weight as high as it can, the soul is sinking lower and lower. There's a strange mechanism there, which isn't directly proportional, but we're just used to it. We hear it all the time. We cultivate that personal importance so that one day we will be somebody, and then never again. But what does it even mean, you have to study hard? What does study hard actually mean in our system, in what they call the beautiful educational system? Kids love that, being in the educational system. It calms them down right away. But what does it mean, study hard? It means being able to repeat the covered material well. And just from that word covered, you might notice that the material is somehow already filtered. It's no longer whole. Someone has already gone through it. And it was the teacher who went through it. From the perspective of the ego, that's fine, because the teacher is smarter than the student. From the soul's perspective, it's nonsense, because the child is, of course, smarter than the teacher. That's logical. The child arrives fresh. As the kids say, our knowledge is better, because it's fresher. It's still new. But of course, we cultivate the ego, so the teacher has the right to teach the student. The teacher presents the material, goes through it, and if the student repeats it without mistakes, they get an A, right? If they make a mistake, they get a B. More mistakes, a C. And if there are a lot of mistakes, a D. And if it goes even worse, it's an F, and you have to repeat it until it sticks. So what does this system teach us? What do we actually learn? Well, it teaches us that learning means repeating what someone told us. Someone who, for mysterious reasons, is considered an authority. Very often, the soul of the child doesn't understand that at all. It doesn't get why this person is the authority. But that's just how it is. It's the system of domestication. And secondly, this system also teaches us that it's not good to make mistakes, because a mistake means a lower grade. So, sum total, this system takes away all our creativity, because creativity is only possible where we don't just repeat what someone told us, where something new can arise. And that can only happen where you are allowed to make mistakes. Where you can't make mistakes, nothing new can arise. Oh well. Even if it takes away our creativity, in this system, it's not really needed. Here, it's just about making it somewhere. And that works. In fact, I can tell you tonight just how far all of us can make it. Ladies and gentlemen, in this system, we can make it so far that we earn a piece of paper. And that's a fantastic result. After many years of effort, we get a piece of paper. Our very own paper with our name on it. It's ours alone. We receive it in a ritual, the paper. We can take a photo with it, just to make it clear that we've got the paper now, that we are somebody. We stop being nobody. We carefully roll up the paper and put it into some kind of case, because God forbid the paper gets lost. We'd be a person without paper again, back to being nobody. So the paper becomes precious, like the apple of our eye. And now, we're so obsessed with papers that we call everything papers. Papers for our mind, papers for the car, ID, passport, all of it is papers. Money is papers too. It really looks like that. They're just pieces of paper. And we even say, 20, 30 papers, man, that's good. Sometimes we even say, don't bother me now, I'm doing papers. We even make papers. And we're so caught up in all those different papers and folders that we have to keep for 5, 10 years, just in case we need to prove something, that it doesn't even occur to us anymore. And we create more and more papers. One of them is the excellent paper called the business card. And that's a great paper because it's small. It fits in your wallet. You can fit a lot of them there. And most importantly, you can write on it just how far you've made it. We look forward to that little card. All through growing up, we can't wait until we can finally write something on it. And not only do we write it, but we can also hand this card to anyone's face without warning, and it's not even considered rude. It's completely normal. You enter a company, and before you even look someone in the eye, before you shake their hand, they've already whipped it out. Who are you here to see? And there it is. But why am I saying this? Because in the system of building personal importance, we have to pay close attention to we have to examine our business cards very carefully, because in our system, a business card is not just a little piece of paper. It could be our clothing, the brand of our clothing, the brand of our shoes, the type of glasses, the kind of hairstyle, the style of makeup, the brand of our phone, the brand of our car. All of these can be our business cards. And we have to constantly, every day, keep changing and checking if our business cards are in order, if we are still in. It all changes very quickly so that people always have something to buy. The business cards change rapidly. Of course, the system has its checkpoints, its safe zones. We have, for example, the fashion police or fashion patrol. That's good, because they warn us not to dress stupidly, not to be out of fashion. I'm actually looking forward to when the fashion police intervene directly in the street. You step out to take out the trash, and there's a member of the fashion militia. Stop! What do you look like, sir? Hand over those pants immediately. They are unacceptable. You're getting a fine of 20 squats in the tanning salon, and your wife, as punishment, gets 3 nights with day cream. There are strict penalties, so the system has its checkpoints and keeps us always fresh, so we buy the new phone model in time, even if the old one still works, but it's already passé. It doesn't have something the new one has, which can even catch a virus, for example. Imagine someone still having a phone that can't even catch a virus. And you know how kids are at school. The old, bigger phone. A paddle, man. Such a paddle. It's a wild distortion of reality, but it works. The system really works. As long as our aim is to make it somewhere, as long as we're building up our ego, it works. But there are Achilles' heels in the system. Sometimes we might dress according to the fashion police, buy shoes for $18,000, have the latest phone, the latest glasses. We might even rehearse some eye movements with a psychologist so nobody knows we're actually out. And we walk into society, all decked out. And the first thing we overhear is, "What an idiot." That's a tough moment. That's not why we did all this. It's awful. Sometimes it means a sleepless night, sometimes a sleepless week. But most importantly, in the system of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, we have to find out who said it and why. And we also have to get even. Because we're used to. If someone spits at us, we spit back. Spit, 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 spit. Never let anything slide. And what if it's a superior who spits at us? Spit. We know we can't just. We might have to take a detour. Or it's quicker to spit at a subordinate. And that one spits at another subordinate. And when there's no one left, he spits at his wife at home. She spits at the eldest child, who spits at the younger sibling. And then there's nobody left. So in some families, the dog gets it. In others, the grandpa. The Toltecs call this the system of spreading emotional poison. That we're just used to returning those attacks. And in that way, we spread emotional poison. And we're both spit on and spit out. And often, a single comment from somewhere around us really gets to us. A comment touches us, and we often say, "Sorry, but what you said really hurt me." Let's just listen to that sentence. Something touched me. Something touched me, and I'm upset. I often feel offended, and it's unpleasant to be offended because then you're not whole. That's why we say, I need to pull myself together. It's not good to be all broken up inside. And suddenly, a touch stirs up all sorts of emotions and feelings in us. We get angry or humiliated. We cry or get furious. And how is it possible that just a touch, just a little sentence can get under our skin like that? It's because our emotional body is full of wounds, unhealed wounds. And what about you? How do you perceive these first two agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz? Do you have any personal experiences with them? Do you agree? Or did something surprise, inspire, or even bother you? Please share your opinions and experiences in the comments below. I would love to read them, and maybe even respond in a future video. If you found this topic interesting and would like me to cover the remaining two agreements, let me know in the comments as well. Tell me if you'd like to see a follow-up, or if you're curious about a specific perspective on the 4 agreements and how to apply them in everyday life. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Wishing you peaceful and mindful days.